Are you sick of Davo reviewing pixel art games? Yeah, me too. Do I have some bad news for us? Fortunately, the game that we're going to be looking at today is actually pretty damn good. So good in fact, that it took out the award for the best action game at the Video Game Awards this year. Dead Cells is a game by developer Motion Twin that plays in the Roguevania genre, a combination of the Metroidvania and roguelike genres that makes for a challenging and fast-paced experience. It's a Metroidvania, which is what appealed to me and convinced me to buy it in early access in late 2017, but I hadn't really played a lot of it until it was fully released in August this year. Dead Cells does a great job of capturing the feel of a Metroidvania game and couples it very nicely with roguelike map alteration and the silky smooth combat system it has. The game pits you up against a number of enemies and a few bosses and has no shortage of action in that regard. It'll have you zooming around the place from platform to platform and off the walls as it urges you on through this weird apocalyptic hellhole while you climb onwards towards the keep for the final showdown at the end of it all. At times it can be a bit of a slog. It'll frustrate you as death is practically a given, and I'd be hesitant to say that it caters to everyone's tastes, but those who enjoy the genres it spans or anyone seeking a challenge should definitely give it a look in. For a game that's been named the best action game of 2018 rather deservedly, there's plenty of things to admire about Dead Cells. The best way to describe the gameplay in Dead Cells is that it's kinda like a Castlevania game but a lot faster, and with shitloads of dodge rolling. The most enjoyable aspect of Dead Cells is how your character controls. The movement of your character is so fluid, yet so precise. The way you glide around the map when platforming or in combat is definitely one of the best things about this game. The combat is also really smooth. The different weapon combos and types really embellishes it nicely, and making good use of your dodge rolls and such is challenging and rewards good timing. Motion Twin have done really well in the weight and feel of each of the different weapons, and the combat is very satisfying because of it. I personally really like the spear and the greatsword, a lot of the reason being that they were just really satisfying to use. I guess you could almost liken this game to Dark Souls. Oh, there it is. He's comparing it to Dark Souls. Get out of here. Come on, this is my review. Get out of here. You could compare it to a Souls game, as there is a bit of a frustrating feel to every death you have in this game, and a bit of backtrack and repetition upon having to get back to where you were when you died. However, I feel that the deaths are often a little more fair in this game. The 2D setup means you're not having to battle with camera controls, and the way your character controls is a lot more precise and manageable, though arguably the penalty for death is worse than it is in Dark Souls. There's no checkpoints in Dead Cells. There's a fair bit of backtrack in this game, as you'll be going through the same areas a fair bit as you will inevitably die a few times, and this can be quite frustrating and a little bland at times. It is softened however with the fact that it is a roguelike, so the map varies on every life, and there are multiple different paths you can go down every time you progress. There is often 2 different exits to every stage, and this is further embellished when you unlock more runes that allow you to access more areas of the map. This is where the Metroidvania aspect of the game really kicks in. As you progress, you unlock new abilities that allow for access to areas that originally weren't available, and this coupled with the roguelike exploration works very well for this game. The game also has a sense of urgency about it, as it has timed doors on each stage that hold loot behind them if you get to them before they close. Personally, I was a little put off by this initially, as I was more interested in exploring the map a little more and taking my time, but that was definitely more a personal preference thing. You realise pretty quickly you don't need to explore every single nook and cranny, nor do you necessarily need to kill every single enemy on the map, and find yourself in a tough spot between gathering as much loot and upgraded materials and being able to progress quickly and make that time door on the next stage. Progression is sorted at the end of each stage, where you can put your collected cells towards new weapons and abilities that will become available, as well as other upgrades such as your health flasks and the amount of money that you can save each time you die. You'll notice a bunch of vials above the spawn area, which slowly fill up as you unlock more and more items, which is just a nice touch. There were a few things that I thought were a little weird about the game, like how the penalty for falling off the map is quite low, especially for a game that is definitely rather difficult in plenty of other regards. The boss fights, while engaging, I thought were just a little bit of a "this enemy has quite a lot of health" trope, and begin to get a little stale after fighting the same boss multiple times, but they were still engaging nonetheless, and definitely posed a challenge the first time around. Except for the timekeeper boss. He's a little bitch. Nonetheless, mechanically, Dead Cells is really well polished, and it is definitely something that the game deserves a lot of praise for. One of the things that impressed me about Dead Cells is how they managed to tell a story without just shoving a bunch of codex entries in your face. There's plenty of visual storytelling in this game, as well as some interesting dialogues and findings around the map. I was also impressed with how they managed to give your character some personality, despite it being like a ball of gas that inhabits dead bodies. The way your character interacts with the world in certain situations is a little nonchalant to the rather grim setting around it, and it has a bit of a tendency to just kick stuff. But nonetheless, it was nice for your character to have a bit of, well, character. The way your character is practically immortal and simply needs to inhabit another body upon death does well to explain how you restart each run from the beginning, and is lore friendly in that regard. As mentioned, it's a bit of a grim apocalyptic setting, and Motion Twin have done a great job at setting a mood for the world around you. Visually, the game is very good. The sprite work for your character and enemies is very nice, and they stand out from the environments well, so there's no confusion in that regard. The environment design as well as the backgrounds were really good, and I very much enjoyed the parallaxing backgrounds on stages such as the ramparts. Overall, it was nice to see Dead Cells hold up to the high standard set by many other Metroidvania games on a visual level. The soundtrack also complements the mood well. I liked the soundtrack, I thought it was quite nice and fitting as well, but it wasn't extraordinary. I did get a little bit sick of hearing the same tracks over and over again after a while, but I think that was just in part to my frustration of dying. The inclusion of a few other little touches like the bestiary and the aforementioned vials that are filled as you unlock more equipment are really just the icing on the cake for a game that is certainly done quite nicely with its visuals and atmosphere. In the end, Dead Cells is a fast-paced, fun, yet sometimes frustrating experience. You'll probably die a fair few times when playing Dead Cells, and it'll piss you off, and you might feel a little less than enthused when you're trudging back through the earlier stages of the game. But how well this game plays out mechanically and how good it looks visually is something that definitely deserves praise. The way you glide around the screen and how satisfying the combat is makes for a very pleasing experience, and the atmosphere that this game sets is haunting yet charming all the same. When you master the movement of your character and begin to learn how to best your enemies in combat, it's a very satisfying experience. And although you might need to take a break from this game every now and again, it's definitely a game I'd recommend to anyone who enjoys a Metroidvania, roguelikes, or just some good old 2D action. It's available for a fairly decent price on Steam, and if you can catch it on sale, I wouldn't pass up the opportunity. So thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in next time for Davo's review of another indie early access pixel art title on Steam. Jesus Christ, I'm sick of pixels.